What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Rob Cam, and welcome back to the Rob Cam Show. This time we are reacting to another great wrestling content creator with Wrestle with Andy, as we are reacting to plot twist we never saw coming video that he created. Always show support to these creators, help them out, always leave them a like and subscribe to his channel, subscribe to my channel as well. Leave a like on this video as well, and let's get straight to it.
Wrestling is in many ways similar to a soap opera, and much like a soap opera, it
By the way, shout out to Wrestle to Andy. I fuck with his videos too. I gotta bleep that out. I cursed him too early. Anyway,
has had a lot of big plot twists occur over the years. Sometimes these moments have been successful in increasing interest in the angle, and sometimes,
shout out to Joe
sometimes they
for the
haven't.
narration.
That said, at the very least, they made us all sit up and take notice. But what are the biggest plot twists in wrestling history? Well, that's exactly what we are going to be looking at right now, starting with the most ludicrous reveal of them all, the reveal of Vince McMahon as the higher power. Yes, this all started back in early 1999, that after taking on a more satanic Lord of Darkness tone to his character, The Undertaker.
So I remember, obviously, for those who don't know me, I was born about 97. So about 99, I was probably like, what, 2? So I would not have remembered this or seen it. I probably seen it just off of the strength of YouTube. YouTube history, YouTube University, as we all call it. Just probably wandering onto old Attitude Era videos. That's how I learned my history about wrestling, just YouTube.
Taker began enacting a hostile takeover of WWF. And the way he did this was by forming a ministry of darkness around himself and setting his sights directly on the boss. Of course, as time went on though, it became apparent that the dead man wasn't the real leader of the ministry. No, there was a mysterious higher power hidden behind the curtain that he was answering to. Who was this higher power? Well, the promise of getting an answer to this question was one of the main reasons
it was me all alone,
as we watched the Phenom terrorize the McMahon family all throughout the spring. So much so that at one point even Steve Austin felt bad enough that he had to jump to Vince's defense. And this all led us to the May 31st, 1999 episode of Raw where, following months of speculation, the big reveal was going to happen. Would it be Ted DiBiase or Jake Roberts as some had speculated, or would it be Christopher Daniels as was an early pitch behind the scenes? The answer to that question was none of them, because in the end, the higher power was revealed to be Vince McMahon himself. Needless to say then, this made little sense. Hell, even
I ain't gonna lie, Christopher Daniels. That's one thing we never got to see is Christopher Daniels in WWF or WWE. If that would have happened and it was Christopher Daniels, that would have been fire to see.
And when Vince tried to explain it as him trying to screw with Austin, it somehow made even less sense. That said, this is somehow only added to the legacy of it being a true WTF plot twist, as it was a moment no one saw coming. After all, who could have guessed that Vince was terrorizing his own family in order to mess with his on-screen rival in the pettiest of ways? And the legacy of this moment was also added to by that unintentionally hilarious call from Jim Ross of, "Aw, son of a bitch," when it happened. But this wouldn't be the only time
shout out to
Vince
JR,
McMahon would be
man.
involved in a big...
JR is the legend, voice of my childhood, him, King, Michael Cole, Taz too. Who else? Really those four, especially because I grew up in the ruthless aggression era, so yeah. Really those four. Shout out to them. I'm trying to think who else. There's really those four.
Big plot twist during the Attitude Era. Hell, it wouldn't even be the only time Steve Austin was involved in one either, because an even more infamous one would come in the spring and summer of 2001 when the Rattlesnake turned heel not just once, but twice. That's right, it's the moment which has since gone down in history as the one responsible for stopping the turn of the Millennium Boom period. Yes, the last thing fans wanted to do in 2001 was boo Steve Austin. But that's exactly what they were asked to do when, in a true shocker of a scene, at the close of WrestleMania 17 during his WWF title match with The Rock, Stone Cold went to the dark side in order to get the victory. Of course, he didn't just go to the dark side by cheating or anything though. No, he went as far as to do so by aligning himself with his biggest rival, McMahon himself. And this scene of the two of them standing over the Great One's prone body, sharing a beer together, would be enough to make many fans tune out. However, after a few months, it seemed like they had realized fan interest was waning and pivoted to turn the Rattlesnake babyface once again. And this all happened during the lead up to that July's Invasion pay-per-view when, now with the threat of both WCW and ECW breathing down their necks, Team WWF were in desperate need of the old Stone Cold in order to get the upper hand. And
Hey, turn somebody heel twice in a year is crazy.
that was why, when the old Stone Cold returned on the Raw prior to
Stunner!
the pay-per-view to lay waste to most of the Alliance roster, fans were overjoyed to have their hero back. Little did they know then that this joy would be short-lived because WWF's booking team chose to turn Austin heel again at Invasion when he turned on Team WWF and instead joined the Alliance. Still though, while this wasn't exactly a popular move for many fans,
Guys, comment below. Who's the best person to ever sell a Stone Cold Stunner? You asking me? I would say The Rock. But I did see Scott Hall saw a Stunner pretty good too. If you ask me, it's really The Rock because The Rock added a little extra to it, a little extra sauce to it. But I want to know your opinions as well. So who sold the Stunner the best in WWE or WWF history?
it can't be denied it was a hell of a plot twist regardless, as like with the higher power reveal, no one saw it coming. And it wasn't like prior plot twists surrounding the Invasion angle hadn't worked out, so we can see why they thought this one might have been a good idea on the face of things. After all, this all began with one of the ultimate WTF moments in Shane McMahon buying WCW. That's right, let's travel back in time to 2001, a time where after years of doing battle with one another, the two biggest wrestling companies
I really do wish I started. I mean, 2001. I would have like, let's try to do the math. 2001. About 4. I really do wish I started watching wrestling during this period of time. I think I would have enjoyed it like a lot more. Even though I did. I'm not gonna say I didn't enjoy where I started, but like, just I never got the full experience of the Attitude Era besides watching it in like on YouTube or hearing people talk about it on YouTube or watching old documentaries and stuff like that. But yeah, I was still like a little baby, so I ain't started watching wrestling until like 04, but I really do wish I felt that time period. Like I'm like a nostalgic person. Like I be walking down the street sometimes and I'm like, yo, if I can remember stuff like how it used to be, I'd be like, damn, I remember when this used to be like this, that, and that third, or I'll Google like somewhere where I'm from and try to look up how it used to look before like today, or how it looks today versus how it looked back in the past. It's just stuff like that.
companies in North America had finally ended their war, and the way it had ended was with WCW going out of business and WWF standing tall. Of course, that wasn't the end of the intrigue back at the turn of the millennium, however. No, things got even more interesting once it was revealed that the man who had purchased WCW was Vince McMahon himself, meaning he now owned his competition. And that led to a special episode of Raw on March 26th of that year where, in a special simulcast, he was set to address both the WWF and WCW audiences to announce where the future of the latter promotion lay. Little did we all know, however, that there was a secret guest on hand at Nitro on this evening, and it was one who would shock the world. Yes, none other than Shane McMahon was there at Panama City Beach on that fateful night, and the reason he was there was because, in kayfabe at least, he was the actual owner of World Championship Wrestling. So it was then that as Vince came out,
I was watching the Paul Heyman documentary. It was a chance that Shane could have actually brought ECW
to the ring on Raw to tell everyone what his plans were for WCW.
I guess that's like
Shane gave us a mega plot twist when he
that would have
came
been
out
a
to
real
the ring
life
on Nitro
Invasion era
at the same time
storyline
and announced that yes, he now owned WCW and that he was going to rebuild it. Sure, from here on in, things would start to fall apart as the Invasion became a disappointment in many fans' eyes, but that doesn't take away anything from the initial moment of Shane showing up in WCW, even this many years on. No, today in 2025, it remains just as powerful as it did back then. So while the storyline which followed may have been a flop,
Nah,
the
Stephanie
reveal
was-
that Shane owned the competition
Woo!
still has to rank as one of wrestling's greatest
Yo,
plot
back in
twists
her
ever.
day?
But can it match up to our
Yeesh.
next entry? The time Paul Bearer turned on his client, The Undertaker, in order to align himself with Mankind? Now, there have been a lot of times someone has turned on a friend or business partner in wrestling. Hell, it's basically one of the core tenets of the business at this point. No one stays buddy-buddy for long. But few times has someone turning on someone else had as much impact with fans as the time Paul Bearer turned on The Undertaker back in 1996. Why is that? Well, because prior to this moment, the pair had been inseparable, with them being an unbreakable unit ever since they were first paired up together in 1991. Seriously, back during the mid-90s, it was impossible to not think of Bearer when you thought of the Dead Man and vice versa. And so that's why it hit like a bomb then when at SummerSlam on August 18th, 1996, he chose to switch sides and hitch his wagon to the Phenom's chief rival at the time, Mankind. Why had Paul Bearer chosen to do this? Well, the way he saw it, there was just far more upside in Mick Foley come the mid-90s, and so, ever the businessman, he felt he'd be better served following him instead. Needless to say then, this enraged fans who had come to love the two as a dark unit. And it also enraged The Undertaker too, something he
I
showed
don't know if that was a smart choice on Bears to have. Like I said, I didn't grow up in this era, so I don't know how it felt in the moment. But seeing Mankind with Paul Bear is kind of weird. I ain't gonna lie.
repeatedly over the coming months and years as he made it his life's mission to destroy his now
Oh
former
shit,
manager.
they was doing this too?
In fact, so long would this feud
Shit,
go on
wow.
for, it would eventually give us the introduction of Kane in
The
the
Shark
autumn of
Kane shit?
1997. And even after that was over, the beef
shit,
would
that's
spill
how you
over
look
into
without-
1998 and beyond. Of course, no matter
Hold
how
on,
many
hold
new
on.
the
I
beef
never
would
seen
spill
this man without makeup. Wow.
over into 1998 and beyond. Of course, no matter how many new plot twists happened during this time, though, none of them were ever able to beat the original one of Bearer turning on the Dead Man, as it was something absolutely no one saw coming. So because of that, it took us all a while to accept that it was indeed the way things were going to be now. Sure, the pair would eventually reunite, multiple times in fact, but fans never forgot about their
Bro, I'm
initial
gonna make that,
breakup,
man.
and they never truly forgave Paul for the way he broke their hearts when he caused this. But this isn't the only time a manager has chosen to hitch their wagon to a new client in WWE, all to shocking results, as flashing forward to 2020, it would happen
Yo.
again when we were
I'm sorry. My son looked like, first of all, my son looked like he straight out the Addams Family. This is the one I remember. The whole white face and the eyebrows painted on. I don't know about all that, but this is the Paul Bear I remember. Growing up. Nah, but his face got me dead, bro.
to shocking results. As flashing forward to 2020, it would happen again when we were all given the great plot twist of Paul Heyman becoming the
Hey,
wise
Paul Bear versus Paul Heyman, and the match would have been fire.
man to Roman Reigns.
Imagine that
Why was
shit.
this one so shocking?
dude just
Well, because
fighting.
it represented Roman Reigns' heel turn. Yes, after years of fans rejecting the big dog as a babyface, people watching at home were finally going to get what they wanted, and that was Joanna White turning to the dark side. Of course,
Finally.
they could have never foreseen it happening this way, though, as the circumstances
Took way
leading
too
up to
long.
the moment just didn't seem to allow for someone like Heyman becoming an advocate to Reigns. But that was the way things went because after taking some time away from the ring as a result of health concerns, the big dog would return again in the summer of 2020 with an all-new mindset. So now deciding that he was going to shake up his career, he sought out the advice of the only man who he knew would help him along his path, Paul Heyman. Understandably then, the sight of these two together was a huge plot twist for fans to wrap their heads around at this time, especially as at that point Paul was still aligned with Brock Lesnar. And it caused a lot of people to tune into wrestling for the first time in a long time. Yes, this was the first inklings of WWE's new boom period, because as the weeks and months went on and this new heel version of Roman Reigns, one who now had his wise man in the background making all the plays, started to assemble a bloodline around him, it was clear the company had a storyline for their main event scene, which was speaking not only to the audience, but management too. And we don't have to tell you where the bloodline would eventually lead. Hell, 5 years later in 2025, it's still the dominant storyline in the entire promotion, with it now having grown to encompass figures like Cody and Sammy, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, Solo Sikoa, and even The Rock, amongst others.
Jacob Fatu.
And none of that would have happened had it not been
Tagovailoa.
for a fateful decision right at the height of lockdown, which led to Roman turning to Paul Heyman in his
Alexa
hour of
Bliss.
need
Oof.
and deciding to hire him as his new counsel going forward. Really, given where it's led already and where it's probably going to lead in the future, this could be seen as the most important plot twist in WWE history and the linchpin which the new era of the company revolves around. But let's move away from WWE for a moment and over to another company instead, one which has also given us their fair share of plot twists over the years. Though in the case of Bubba Ray turning on Devon in TNA, this got a far more mixed response at the time. Why did the explosion of the Dudley Boys get such a mixed reaction back in late 2010? Well, for one, it was because by that point, a brief solo stint the two engaged upon during the early days of the Ruthless Aggression era WWE aside, they'd been partners for pretty much the entirety of their careers. Yes, as far back as their days in Paul Heyman's Renegade ECW promotion, Bubba Ray and Devon were tied at the hip as one of the top tag team acts of their era. Seriously, so dominating a force would they be when they worked together, they'd go on to win the titles of just about every major company there was in the world.
One of the
By
greatest
the time
tag
2010
teams.
came around, however, and the two were working down in the Impact Zone, there must have been a sense with Bubba Ray that he'd gone as far as he could as part of a duo. And that was why he began planning out a singles run for himself there, one which would soon see him transform into Bully Ray, the Scourge of TNA. Of course, before he could embark on this singles run though, he'd first have to cut out his tag team partner. And that was why, in the supposed retirement ceremony of the Dudleys after they'd lost to the Motor City Machine Guns at November 7th, 2010's Turning Point pay-per-view, Bubba Ray shocked us all when he turned on Devon. Yes, it was a moment no one thought they would ever see as, for so long, the Dudleys had been a constant of tag team wrestling. And now that it had happened and the whole thing began to sink in, the heat on the Queen's native was huge as he used this to fuel his new heel character all the way to the top. And when we say all the way to the top, we mean it, because by the time all was said and done, Bully Ray would be a two-time TNA World Heavyweight Champion and an undeniable singles superstar. That said, the fact he had to destroy the Dudleys in order to get there still stings for many fans, even if the two were men fencing.
Imagine he probably had this Bully Ray concept probably years, but imagine he did that at the height of like when they were in their primes. Bully Ray as a character was a great character for TNA. I feel like in his prime it would have been fire,
And reunite,
especially back when wrestling was more so a little edgy and a little more not PG. It would have fit way perfect.
Went on. But it could have been worse. It could have been like the time another team from that classic Tables, Ladders, and Chairs series broke up. After all, they were real-life brothers. Yes, it's time for us to talk about the time Matt Hardy was revealed to be the secret attacker of Jeff Hardy. Sure, it wasn't as if the Hardys were actively teaming together in late 2008. No, by this point, they'd gone their separate ways for the most part as they engaged upon singles runs, but they appeared to be on good terms. That was until a number of strange things started happening to Jeff over on SmackDown. Things like him being attacked by a mystery assailant in a stairwell, him being a victim of a pyro mishap during his entrance, or even his beloved dog passing away in a fire. This all caused the audience to start questioning what was going on with the charismatic Enigma, which had led to such an apparently powerful enemy going after him. Was this a newly debuting star trying to make an impact by taking out the legend? Was it an old rival like Edge or Bubba Ray Dudley looking for revenge? Neither of these things as it happened. No, the truth was the man behind the whole thing was none other than Matt Hardy. Needless to say, this came as a shock to everyone watching once Matt revealed himself.
Bro, that chair shot, I will never forget it. That man Matt turned around, swung that bitch. Oh, I said, oh nah, I remember when I was a kid, I saw that. Yo, bro, Matt really had us all tight. Like, what?
2009 Royal Rumble.
And he had on tights. This man had on tights with a kick pass. And
why had the oldest of the pair suddenly decided to make his sibling's life a living hell here then? Well, the simple answer was that he was jealous of all the success Jeff had been having as a solo act. Yes, by this point, Jeff had managed to scale the mountaintop and become...
Sorry, one more time. I remember Jeff Hardy said, recently he said, I seen it online, he said, at this point, if he was like clean and stuff like that, he would have been bigger than John Cena. I'm not gonna lie, he might not be wrong about that statement. I'm not even gonna hold you. If Jeff Hardy was clean and did what he did, he probably, I'm not gonna say he would have been bigger, but they would have been neck for neck. But then you gotta remember, CM Punk, damn, that would have been like an effect in a way. Like if Jeff Hardy was clean and became big, what does that do to CM Punk? Does CM Punk still become who he is today? The voice of the voiceless? Like, you gotta think certain things have a ripple effect in just life. Because if I'm not saying at that point that it would have, like, CM Punk would have been did the whole pipe bomb and whatnot. We didn't get that to like what 2011, I think, about that. About like 2011, the pipe bomb. Maybe I'm wrong. 2011, 2012, early 2010s, we got the pipe bomb. Right. This right here is about 08, 09. Yeah. Do we? If Jeff Hardy stays in the WWE, it was clean. Do we still get CM Punk pushed? Hopefully, I would love to see both of them make it to the top, and then, but like I said, everything has like a ripple effect. So, if Jeff is clean and one of the top baby face, we obviously CM Punk is better as a heel or as a face. He's just a legend at the end of the day. But somebody like Daniel Bryan, does that affect them? Like everything has a ripple effect. Because if Jeff stayed, somebody's push had to be like, somebody wouldn't have gotten a push. Somebody
WWE champion, and all the while he was doing
but
this.
Back to what Jeff said, if he was clean and healthy, would he have been bigger than John Cena? I don't think he would have been bigger, but he would have been just as big. I don't think it would have been a tie really between both of them. But I think John Cena, to me, I grew up a Cena fan, so it's kind of like John Cena had like the spinner belt. That's his title, bro. At the end of the day, they kept it for however years they kept it for. But at the end of the day, you cannot not associate that title without John Cena. Like that's literally his title. Like I don't care what nobody says. Much people looked great with that title, even though a lot of people hated that title. Listen, I grew up with that title, so I love that shit. I had it as a kid, as a toy. I think I had the one that played music. I could be wrong. Or just a regular one. Either way, that shit spun. I wanted the actual replica. I may get it one day, but we'll see.
Matt was continuing to linger in the mid card.
Hey, them belts is not cheap. I ain't gonna lie, the actual replicas are not cheap.
So feeling like he was being overlooked then, he decided to take matters into his own hands the only way he knew how. So it was then that the two would go on to have multiple one-on-one matches against each other, including their showdown at WrestleMania 25. And even if this rivalry wasn't always received the best by many fans, that initial turn from Matt was a shocking plot twist nevertheless, as it was something few could have foreseen. No, sometimes a heel turn happens so seemingly out of the blue, it can't help but take people...
Hey, Broken Matt Hardy, if that happened earlier in that time period, would have been way better to see versus that Matt Hardy. Because he's just generic. Like, he got the generic tights on. It's like he's just generic as hell during that rivalry. Got tights on, got kick pads. It's like, what the hell happened to you?
Back. And if you need another example of this, just look to our next entry, the time The Rock turned heel and joined the corporation. Now, for some context here, while he had turned heel after joining the Nation of Domination in late 1997, by the time the summer of 1998 came around, Dwayne Johnson was getting so over with fans on account of his supernatural levels of charisma that WWF was forced to change courses with him and make him a babyface again. And as the autumn came around, this seemed to be setting him up for true superstardom as his levels of popularity began to approach that of Steve Austin. But little did we know that there was a huge plot twist awaiting us all, and that it was going to drop at that year's Survivor Series. What happened at Survivor Series that year? Well, after running the gauntlet in the Deadly Games tournament, a one-night tournament to determine the new holder of the vacant WWF title, The Rock and Mankind would find themselves on the opposite side of the ring during the finals. And with The Rock being the babyface here, the expectation was that he was going to walk out of the evening with the gold around his waist. But while this would happen, it would happen in a way that no one saw coming, as it involved the Great One turning his back on the fans and revealing that he'd actually been in cahoots with the villainous corporation the whole time. Yes, it was the betrayal of the decade, and one the live crowd were not too happy with, as here was their guy turning his back on them all. Really, this was a risky move in hindsight, as it could have ended all of Rocky's goodwill with fans forever had it gone a different way. But in the end, it worked out, because with this now setting up a big-time WrestleMania 15 main event between the People's Champion and Steve Austin, we got a great feud out of it.
Yep.
And once that feud was over, The Rock was able to switch right back to being a babyface, as fans had by that point forgiven him and were ready to cheer him once more. Yes, if we were to talk about great plot twists of the
you gotta think about it, right? If they were always going to do Rock versus Austin, both of them could have been face, so somebody had to be the heel. So, like he said, it worked out, but you really have to think about it. When it comes to wrestling, you can have two babyface wrestle, you can have two heels wrestle, but if you really want like emotion from the crowd, emotion in the storyline, one person has to be heel and one person has to be babyface. I don't know. Again, I wasn't really watching wrestling around this time. I don't know who was really bigger. They say they were neck and neck, but I'm assuming Austin was probably just a little bit bigger. So for him to be the heel, at that point in time, I don't think it would have been right because it's Austin. But I feel like The Rock, since again they were here, but I feel like Austin was just a little tad bit more. It was just made more sense for The Rock to turn heel because he already been heel with the Nation of Domination and whatnot.
Era, this would be high up on the list, as it was hugely effective in just about every conceivable way. In fact, it wouldn't be until decades later that a betrayal in WWE was able to achieve similar levels of heat, with this finally happening in 2014 when Seth Rollins turned on the Shield. That's right, the biggest plot twist for a whole generation of fans. This one stung particularly when it happened, as about for a year and a half prior to that, the Shield had been the...
Now, if you ask me if I had to redo the Shield breaking up, it would have been, at the time, it would have been way more perfect if Roman was the one that betrayed them. Because obviously the fans for years, like babyface Roman was being pushed down people's throats, as they like to put it, pause. But babyface Roman was being pushed incredibly hard, pause again. No matter what I say, pause. But they were trying to push Roman as this babyface. It wasn't working. I feel like in this moment of the breaking up of the Shield, if the roles were reversed and Seth was the face and Roman was the heel during the breakup, or while they all went their separate ways, I feel like it would have hit different and it would have worked out better. Not saying we would have got it. Who knows? Because the tribal chief was something he was talking about. Seeing a video, he was talking about being a tribal chief. When they were all at NXT. So I don't know if we would have got the tribal chief a little earlier. Maybe so, maybe not. We would have got probably the same thing as Seth did, being a corporate puppet. But it would have been better for Roman to be that. Actually, it would have been perfect because that's Vince's guy. Why not make Roman the corporate puppet? It would have been way more better for him and beneficial for him as Seth be the babyface and Dean be the babyface. I hope Jon Moxley comes back to the WWE one day. Now he over there at AEW looking like Stone Cold Steve Austin 2.56. Looking like let me stop. Nah, he's bald now. I mean, he had no choice. His hair was going. But now he really do kind of look like Stone Cold.
Dominating force in the WWE. And the reason for that was because despite being rookies to the WWE, the trio made up of Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins beat just about everyone they were put up against, whether that be John Cena, Randy Orton, The Undertaker, Daniel Bryan, or anyone else. Hell, by the time the spring of 2014 came around, they were even destroying classic stables like Evolution, a sign of just how big a deal they were. Sadly, though, this story would end the way we all knew it was going to eventually, with a betrayal. But while most assumed that a betrayal would come from a lunatic fringe like Ambrose, in the end it was Rollins who chose to disband the group when he laid out both of his stablemates with a steel chair on the June 2nd episode of Raw that year. Why had he done this? Well, feeling like the Shield had taken him as far as it could, Seth decided to throw his lot in with the Authority instead, and to be fair, this worked out for him gangbusters, as by that same time next year, he'd be WWE Champion. Still though, even if this betrayal did lead to the Architect winning the big one, it didn't make it hurt any less for fans, as they had all come to love the Hounds of Justice by then. So that's why there's some solace to be taken in the fact that, as the years went on, the three would mend fences and reform a couple of times. And while it's unlikely we'll ever get another reunion today, what with Dean Ambrose having since left the WWE and headed over to AEW, there was some sense of forgiveness between the trio before they all parted ways. But while the Shield may have forgiven one another now, partially due to the fact that they're each the kings of their own castle today, that doesn't mean all the wounds have healed from what took place on that fateful night back in 2014. No, some fans will never be able to forget how it felt to watch such a beloved group fall apart in an instant like
technically the wounds haven't. How was that? The wounds haven't been healed because Seth is still on some I will never team up with Roman. I want nothing to do with him ever again. So them two still have this beef or this history. Now that Vince is gone, I really do want Mox to come back because AEW unfortunately isn't the best right now. For years I was saying that WWE needed competition in the form, and we got it in the form of AEW, but to see what AEW has now become is kind of like I can't even watch that shit, bro. I tried, bro, and I remember it was a Chris Jericho segment, and I was like, bro, this shit is cringe. I turned that shit off.
Like that. And this is why, even as recently as WrestleMania 40, it was still being referenced and called back to in the main event between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. But let's move away from the Shield for now and on to our next subject instead, as it's with him we find one of the greatest plot twists in all of wrestling history.
Mark Henry in that pink salmon suit.
Why, Mark Henry and that time he fooled us all with that iconic salmon jacket. Yes, you all remember this one, we're sure. How could you not? After all, back in 2013, this was a moment of true brilliance.
Shout out to Mark Henry,
came about
man.
when, following a lengthy career which had seen him finally get over as a top guy with his Hall of Pain gimmick in 2011, Mark Henry decided it was time to hang up his boots once and for all. Or at least that's what we all thought was going to happen, because when the World's Strongest Man came out to the ring on the June 17th, 2013 episode of Raw, decked out in a garish salmon-colored jacket, it really felt like the end of the road for him, as both he and the company sold it so well. Seriously, the fact he left his boots at the entranceway, then came down to the ring to give a very heartfelt and sincere-sounding speech about his career, fooled us all. And it also fooled John Cena, someone who was at ringside while this all was taking place. So that's what made it all the better then when, following what really felt like a final address to the fans, Mark pulled a swerve Vince Russo would have been jealous of when he laid out John Cena and revealed that the whole thing had been a ploy to attack him and get him to give him a shot at the WWE title. Would this lead to him winning the title from Big Match John at Money in the Bank a month later? No, sadly, it would not.
Hey,
that was one belt
Mark
which
had a
would
little
remain
run
out
with
of
that
reach
title,
for Henry for
that
the
would've been
remainder of his
fire, I ain't gonna
career.
lie.
But if this was the closest he ever got to winning that particular piece of gold, then he certainly made it count, because even to this day, people talk about this as being one of the most memorable plot twists in history. So memorable was it, in fact, when Mark finally did retire for real and get his WWE Hall of Fame induction in 2018, he'd make sure to bring that old salmon jacket with him and put it on while he delivered part of his speech. That's right, if you were to associate Mark Henry with one thing today, it would possibly be that jacket. And considering how long he was a part of WWE for, this is impressive. But then we guess that just goes to show how important a great plot twist can be in creating a memorable moment for someone's career.
Shout out to Mark, man. He was at Saturday night's main event. They shouted him out. Big Texas boy right there. Yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate y'all all tuning in, doing these reactions with me. Definitely more to come. Shout out to Wrestle with Andy. Always have great videos. Make sure you guys subscribe to his channel and leave a like if you guys like wrestling content. Make sure you guys as well subscribe to my channel, leave a like, do all that good stuff, share it to your friends. But as always, remember, keep doing your thing, ladies and gentlemen, and always make it make sense. I see you on the next one. Peace.